Hello everyone and welcome to this installment of the MAET Bridge webinar series on technology to assist learning. We are hosting this webinar as part of our coursework since we are all students in the Master of Arts in Educational Technology program at Michigan State University. I am Becky Whitaker and I am a 6th grade teacher in Jackson, Michigan, and I am currently in my 2nd year in the MAET program, and I will be one of your moderators today.
Hello, I'm Susan Smidra, and I will also be one of your moderators today. I'm a middle school science teacher at Constantine Middle School in Constantine, Michigan. I am also in my 2nd year of the MAET program.
Hi, I'm Rosie Musigian, and I will be the technical support for this evening's webinar. I'm a middle school math and science and STEM teacher at Marshall Middle School in Marshall, Michigan. I am currently in my 2nd year of the Master's in Educational Technology program at Michigan State University.
Hi, I'm Stacy Bleemaster, and I'll be monitoring the Twitter back channel. I'm a middle school teacher at Bronson Junior Senior High School in Bronson, Michigan, and I'm also in the Master's of Educational Technology program. This is my 2nd year, and I hope that you'll be contributing to our conversation using Twitter. And that's hashtag MAETBridge. So.
Okay, as mentioned previously, our webinar's focus is to look at how technology can assist learning. We will focus on how we can meet the diverse needs of our students through technology and how assistive technologies can aid student instruction, particularly through the idea of universal design for learning.
We have several guests with us here today, and we want to thank them for taking time to share their insights about technology and how it can assist learning. With us today, we have Stacy Turk. Stacy is an occupational therapist from Ingham ISD who works in East Lansing and Weberville schools. Stacy, can you let us know a little bit more about yourself and your current work?
Sure. Hi. For some reason, my name's not appearing at the bottom, so every once in a while, I'll flash my little Twitter right here. I'm Stacy Turk. And I am an occupational therapist. I've been working for the ISD for 30 years. I've worked the full range from center-based facility all the way through to all sorts of intervention kinds of stuff. And I use technology from the lowest tech to some fairly high-tech stuff. So I'm excited to talk about it.
All right, thank you. Also joining us today is Holly Engemann. Holly works in Jackson, Michigan as a 2nd grade teacher and has a passion for integrating technology into her teaching. So Holly, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your work?
I'm Holly Engemann, and like she said, I teach 2nd grade at a Catholic school in Jackson. I've been teaching there for 7 years. I am currently attending Grand Valley State University for my master's degree. I am getting it in literacy and also early childhood education, and my master's project is how to incorporate technology and to increase new literacies and help teachers out with that. So I'm happy to share what I do in my classroom with you all. Happy to be here.
Welcome, Holly. Our 3rd guest today is Phil Booth. Phil is an assistive technology consultant at Ingham ISD who currently works with general education classroom teachers and students with IEP in order to match technology with student needs. Phil, can you tell us a little more about yourself and your current work?
Hi, my name's Phil Booth, and I'm the assistive technology consultant at Ingham ISD, along with Stacy works with me. I work with Stacy hand in hand in a few of the districts. I service 7 school districts in Ingham ISD. K through 12, also with early on in the county. And I'm sorry, that's my dog, Lucy.
He's excited too.
Yeah, and I think the best way to describe my role is what I do is I match technology with the students and their academic needs that they may have.
Well, thank you, Phil. And our 4th guest today is Keith Tramper. Keith is an instructional technologist at Kalamazoo Regional Education Service Agency, or KRESA. Keith, can you tell us a little more about yourself and your current work?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Keith Tramper, instructional technologist down at Kagarisa. This is 2.5 years there. I'm a former middle and high school math and science teacher from the Grand Rapids area, and I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of kids with special needs, ELL students, and struggling learners all around. So, my day in and day out around my job is working with teachers to enhance their instruction and empower their students to do awesome things with technology.
Okay. All right, thank you again so much for being here tonight. We really appreciate you taking the time. And those of you out there watching, thank you as well. And please remember to use the Twitter hashtag MAETBridge for any thoughts, comments, or questions. In terms of how this webinar will be run, we will pose a question and then we'll open it up for all of your thoughts on the topic. We hope for this webinar to have a very conversational feel, so please don't be shy to jump in and build off other people's ideas. And so with that said, we're going to start off with the first question. And our first question we'd like to pose is, how do you all feel that technology has affected teaching and learning?
I'm pausing only because I'm waiting for one of the teachers to jump in first.
I can jump in. I feel that it brings higher achievement for all students. It allows myself as a teacher to be multiple places at once. I can get to know each student and what they know and what they need help on. This allows me to keep track of assessments all in one area. And it also brings the world to my students in the small little community of Jackson. I can bring them the world, I can expose them to audiences, authentic audiences, and that really has increased their curiosity, their wonder about the world, and also their drive to do their best to share their work with a broader audience. So technology has really helped me do that.
And now I'm going to jump in on Holly's statement about bringing the world to your students. I've found that technology has brought the world to me as an occupational therapist. I'm able to access research and researchers and experts in ways that I might not otherwise be able to do if it weren't through Twitter or through other research modes online. And that's just been a fabulous resource for me and for the teachers and the students that I support. That's just been immeasurable to me.
If I could piggyback off of all of that, I think it was Holly that said that it kind of brings the world to our students. I think it kind of brings our students to the world as well. It gives us as teachers a chance to kind of showcase what our students are learning, what our students are doing, and giving them a chance to impact the world beyond their classroom walls.
You know, I think that being the assistive technology consultant and working with kids with disabilities, that this technology is an absolute game changer. It's getting kids to be able to get into the general ed class for longer periods of time and to be able to work with teachers like you guys that for them to do all those cool things you've just mentioned.
I guess we'll start with our second question. How do you use technology in your current practice to meet the needs of your students? So kind of piggybacking off of Phil's comment.
Can I, maybe I'll just keep going then.
Sure.
Because with my job, what I do is I take a look at an individual kid, and I go through a process or a framework for a student, and I take a look at this, and it's called a SET framework, and it's from a lady named Joy Zabawa. Set this up, and she has a website that's joyzabawa.com, and SET stands for student, environment, task, and then technology. So what we try to attempt to do is go through, take a look at who the student is and understand who the student is best we can. Take a look at the environment the student's in. and who's involved with them. You know, like Stacy's an OT, and you know, how often does Stacy work with this person, or how often is he in general ed, or what resources are in that particular building or classroom that this kid utilize, and then we take a look at the tasks that we're trying to use the technology for. And then we look around and try to match the technology that we have in that area and match it with that particular kid. And it's real important for us to go through those kind of steps and for meeting the needs of a particular student. Because sometimes what you may end up doing is you could go, you may have a technology like some type of keyboard or a calculator or anything. You're saying, wow, we have this really cool technology in this classroom. How can I fit it with the kid? Opposed to taking a look at the kid first and matching it with the technology. So, and that's what I constantly am doing, is trying to use that STEP framework for kids.
And like Phil said, he and I both work in the special education realm, so we do work with individual students and individual student needs. And so I might look at something as simple as what used to be high tech, a pencil grip. You know, just a simple pencil grip that might help a student hold on to that pencil a little bit with greater stability and ease his any writing frustration. It might be the answer. Something as simple as, and I realize this is a different kind of tech, but it used to be high tech to use a slant board. You put a student on a slant board and you can really improve their ability to write. But then I've got kids that need to use higher technology, and Phil is, of course, obviously involved in that with me. But what's been really fun for me too is it's not just individual student. We're also using technology to meet the needs of the whole class. I love being able to watch a little classroom, an early elementary classroom, using Go Noodle on whatever classroom technology they have. It's a way for kids to work on self-regulation strategies, but every kid's need might be a little bit different, but everybody's able to get their needs met all at the same time. And I've really, that's been a game changer for me as an OT. We'll talk more about that in a bit too, I think.
That's awesome. Yeah, I would definitely say that getting to know your students, getting to know, in my case, I work a lot with teachers, so getting to know your teachers and really understanding what their needs are is first and foremost in it all. Otherwise, you're just using technology for technology's sake. So I guess one of the things that I do, in addition to kind of the same work that Phil and Stacy are doing, and I work more in the general ed population, but I try to always seek feedback and get a feel for, yeah, I got to know them, I provided the material or some sort of technology that helped fit their need. Now I need to get a feel for how it actually worked. Did it meet the need? How can I go back? How can I change that? How can I reinvent some things?
Yeah.
So I use a lot of Google Forms, a lot of other things, and often provide additional resources to go up beyond that. So, you know, we'll talk a little bit, I'm sure, about instruction in multiple different representations, but I always try to give lots of different ways through YouTube videos or screencasts or Google Docs or drawings or whatever you got to try to give everybody a chance to learn it in a way that makes sense to them.
And I like to use technology. I like to give students choice in what app they're using after I taught them how to use it. I usually like to start the week with the website Wonderopolis, and it has a wonder of the day, so we can wonder about that. I also have a Padlet where students can enter whatever wonders they have, and I move from just random sticky notes on their pictures to doing a Padlet so I can keep it all in one spot. I can keep track of what they're wondering, and I also push them and I give them time to research what they're really wanting to showcase their knowledge on. I've had them create Book Creator, to create books. I've had them do Google Slides where they can share their knowledge with their classmates. So that's really key. Choice and giving them the power to research what they're interested in is very important.
So I heard from a couple different people about Go Noodle, different slides, Wonderopolis, and this is open to anybody. Do you have any suggestions on teacher resources that teachers could use to find ways to meet the needs of the varying populations that they have in their classroom?
I'm really biased. I really want teachers to reach out to their school occupational therapists because OTs are trained to help look at whole group and look at individual learners. And we can come in. There was a time when I was limited to having to work just with the children on my caseload, but now I am freed up more and I'm able to go in and work with classrooms as a whole to help look at self-regulation strategies, to look at how can we get different learners engaged who might be struggling sitting because they're active little bodies, and those active little bodies need to be moving in order to get all of that integration happening the way that it should. So I would highly recommend contacting your school OT.
That is a great plug.
I'm a
I'll do a quick
passionate.
plug for your instructional technologist if you're lucky enough to have one too. I kind of wanted to share a couple of resources that I use as kind of go-to places when I'm looking for answers to the question you just asked. So one of my favorites is Edutopia, and if you dig a little into their website, they have tons of categories from leading experts in all sorts of different fields. So any kind of topic you could look for, assistive tech or differentiated learning or learning styles, whatever you've got, they've probably got a bunch of articles on it, and they're well done. I know this is for the MAET program, so there's a group, Michigan EdTech Specialists. It's a Google Plus community. I'd highly recommend that you, if you're looking into that sort of a role, that you go and you join that community. It's a great community. And lastly, I do a ton of driving for my job, so podcasts are like my best friend. So if you can find a number of different podcasts that help you stay up on different things in education or technology in general, there's a few good ones out there. I'd recommend Note to Self or Hidden Brain. Those are my favorites.
Note to Self.
I think, and I think everyone's kind of talking about this, but there's so many resources in your building, in your district, that you just tap into and not feel like you have to go to the mega conference or you have to do those kind of things that, and there's just talk to your neighbors and find out what they're doing and work with them as a group and come up with some things. One of the other things is a great resource is Twitter. Twitter has so many things that you can jump onto and interest, and then bring it to your neighbors in your building, and talk things over and see what you can do as a team.
Going back with Twitter, I have joined so many different chats. They happen weekly. Follow the hashtags. They are archived. I've learned so many different things from all teachers all around the world. Another resource is this book called Amplify by Kristen Zemke and Kate Mutaris. It's for teachers K through 6. It's how to amplify using tech in a meaningful way in your classroom. It has definitely made a difference on what tools I'm picking in my classroom and why I'm picking those tools.
Oh, that's awesome. I have a couple of others that I just want to share. You mentioned Twitter chats, and Mish Ed happens, I think, Wednesday nights. Does anybody know for sure? I think it's Wednesday nights at 7. It's the hashtag MICHED, and it's a different topic every week, at least during the school year, and it's been extremely useful for all different kinds of topics, gen ed, special ed, all age ranges. Specialism is another really great resource. There's a website, they've got blogs, and there are great Twitter presence too. It's just the word special with ism at the end, and it's especially useful for special educators, folks who might be working with students who might be require a little bit of extra support. Really, really great resource.
All right, well, as mentioned, we'll be looking at technology to assist learning through the lens of UDL, or also known as the Universal Design for Learning. Just a refresher, UDL is a set of principles for designing curriculum that provides all individuals with equal opportunities to learn. It is designed to serve all learners, regardless of their ability, disability, age, gender, or cultural or linguistic background. UDL provides a blueprint for designing goals, methods, materials, and assessments to reach students, including all of those with diverse needs. And if I can get this screen share to work, we got a little graphic to show you. Maybe not. Let's see. All right, here we go. Anytime? All right. Let's see. Can you see? Okay. So I've got my screen kind of split, so we'll see. Basically, UDL is founded in the principles of representation, action and expression, and engagement. And kind of a little example for that is this curve. So, for example, it was originally designed probably for people who were in wheelchairs or had trouble getting up ramps, but pretty much anybody can use it. It could be somebody who is pushing a baby in a stroller. It could be somebody who has, a bum leg or something and is using crutches. It could be used for anything. But so just because it was designed for one purpose, it could be utilized by many different purposes. Let me get off the screen share. Okay. There we go. So, getting back to the UDL design, how does that fit into your practice? Anybody? Remember to tweet out any questions or comments you have also to hashtag MAETBridge. So people out there. So how does UDL fit into your practice?
So we mentioned Go Noodle already, and Go Noodle is a fabulous example from an OT perspective. I don't know how many years ago, maybe 8 years ago or so, there were a number of students identified as needing what we called brain breaks. We recognized that there were kids who really struggled sitting down, and so OTs went through this process of creating brain breaks for those kids. And then we started looking around and realizing everybody, and there was research to support this, everybody does better if we're moving, and if we're moving in a certain and coordinated and organized way. And so then more classroom-based opportunities occurred, and now it's hard to find a teacher who doesn't know Go Noodle. Just last week, the guys from Cuckoo Kangaroo, and I feel like a weirdo as an adult saying those words out loud, but teachers hearing Cuckoo Kangaroo guys know who I'm talking about. They came and performed at a local bar in East Lansing. It's that big of a deal, and whole families went to hear these guys do their Go Noodle song. It's been wonderful. It's been a great opportunity for kids and teachers to get that movement throughout the day. It helps with self-regulation. It helps everybody, not just the targeted children.
I can't believe I missed Cuckoo Kangaroo.
I know, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
I think Susan's explanation kind of, did a good job of explaining UDL, and it really connects with what I try to do when I work with teachers. And I always try to find a tool that's really versatile, that can be used in a lot of different ways. So I'll give you one example of one that I see a lot of teachers using and I work with teachers on, called Seesaw. So Seesaw is a super simple way for students to kind of build a student portfolio. And they can do anything from take a picture, create a video, type a response, draw a response, all kinds of things, all in one little app that can work on multiple devices. So it's a tool that could work for math. It could work for reading. It could work for writing. It could work for just about any application. It's really up to the teacher to find a way to make it work for whatever they need it for. So once they've identified that need, they could use that sort of a tool, something that's versatile enough to work for lots of different purposes.
I am a teacher that uses Seesaw. I'm actually just becoming a Seesaw ambassador. So I love Seesaw. students keep an online portfolio, like you said. They can add anything. They can edit things now. They change the link. They can edit over their work. They can share their work out with classmates. Parents can see the work that they're doing in their classroom. Any app that you use in the classroom, like Book Creator, some other creation ones, it can be uploaded right into Seesaw. So it's really easy to share the items that students are creating right there. It's all in one place. So I love Seesaw.
Sorry, I stole it.
I have some examples too, and that I end up using are things that come to mind for me are books on tape or e-books or bringing things from the library. Not as fun as those apps that you guys have been talking about, but one example that we use an awful lot is it's called Bookshare.org, and we have we can download the books for kids that are using in general ed classrooms, and it's gotten easier and easier for us to find any digitized text that people are using in the general ed classrooms. Some of the things that we have in terms of books in an alternative format would be there's a great app called Epic that our kids are using in the summer that we suggested for families to be able to use and be able to read the books or have the books read to them. So those kind of things are anything that the library may have. There's you can download their app for an iPad or any of the Apple products, and it's a great way for kids to be able to have books and not have to go over to the library or and have it right in their hands at home.
Epic is free for teachers in their classroom.
Yes.
I used it last year, and it keeps track of how long they actually read the book, so you can tell if the student is just, pretend reading. It shows you if they canceled out of the book. It says, oh, they read only 1 minute, and it provides them choice on what to read. It asks them their interests and things like that. So, great one. Another one that my students really like doing was Scratch Junior. It's coding, and I tied it in with literacy. So they created their code story, and then they had to create the story that went along with it, and they can record their voice. Everybody in my classroom like that. I had a boy who's high-functioning autistic in my room, and he loved this Prodigy math game. So he loved, I used his interest to find an app that worked for him. He really loved, dungeons and castles and all of that. Well, the characters have to battle out, but before he can do a battle, he has to answer a math question that I can pose for him based on what he's learning in math, and it levels it based on what he knows and what he understands. And he loved that so much that he taught the rest of the kids in my class how to use it. So that was really powerful for him to be able to show and share what he learned and share it with the other classmates.
I love what you said there with student choice, and I think that's something that doesn't get talked about enough. And you can just from your story, I can hear it that you found something that just totally connected with a kid that may have not connected with him in another way. And I think that's a really important part of teaching, is that we give students enough choice and enough support to just go and do something in a way that makes sense to them and that connects with them and that they can pursue their passions and how that relates to our curriculum.
I agree. Definitely get to know your students and help create a classroom community is also huge in helping them find technology that fits.
Well, Holly, it sounds like you've broken up your classroom, differentiated it to be able to meet those kids' needs. Sounds pretty cool.
I tried to.
I'm going to jump in real quickly just because thank you to those people out on Twitter. We do have a question for the occupational therapist, and it says, the occupational therapists in my building have a very heavy caseload. How do you recommend getting support with limited staff?
Oh, that's a real creative challenge. I agree. It is a real creative challenge. For me, it's been a wide variety of ways that I've been able to both meet the needs of the students who are IEP'd to receive direct OT service, but also have time for those intervention services or those whole classroom stuff. It can be as simple as working with the student in the general education classroom, which then allows me to maybe model for other kids or do a small group, pull a couple of other children into my group with me. It can be as simple as doing a consultation service for that student and working in the general education classroom. But it really takes, it takes strong support from building and district administration for this to really be a good success. So that's kind of where I start as an OT. I'm not sure if that question came from an OT or if that question came from a teacher. Sometimes it really takes just some nice work with your staff too to make sure they know that they're welcome in the classroom. We don't want to interrupt learning. We don't want to get in the way. So sometimes we're hesitant to just jump in. So by all means, invite and reach out.
All right, awesome. We're going to kind of continue on to our next question. So kind of jumping off of UDL and what we've been talking about, we know that students have a lot of struggles. So in your eyes, what are some of the most common educational struggles or challenges you face with your students, whether they be, students with an IEP or just in the general education classroom? What are those common educational struggles or challenges that you see most frequently?
For me, I'm going to just jump right back in. For me, there's three really. Work output. So whether it's related to fine motor challenges, visual motor challenges, communication struggles, work output is a big area that I work on with students. Being able to self-regulate, being able to have yourself in a calm, focused state for learning, being able to manage and even recognize when, in fact, you need a drink, being able to wait to go get that drink, those kinds of things. So that's the second one. And for me, the third one that I get called in on a lot is organization. Not just, knowing when the work is due, getting the work done on time, turning the work that you got done on time in on time. It's those kinds of strategies that I help with.
We have a lot of middle school teachers here, so we can all relate.
I know. How many parents? It's such a frustration for parents. They know that Johnny got his work done. They watched him put it in the backpack, but it never gets turned in. And so that can be, you guys know, that's a big frustration.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Any others want to jump in on educational struggles or challenges?
I think sorry, Phil, having a wide range of students, like I have a really high functioning reader at 11th grade reading level, and then I have some readers that are at a first grade or kindergarten reading level, finding tools that meet all of their needs. I also think that a big struggle is we're talking about new literacy, getting students prepared for the future. What are they going to need to do? They're going to need to research what websites are valid, which ones are good. They don't know how to use these skills, and reading programs and things in today's classrooms, I don't think meet those needs necessarily, because teachers don't know how to implement online text or teach students how to, read them or know what's going on in them. I struggle with that too, and that's a big thing.
Yeah, I think that our students also struggle a lot with how to balance their digital life with what I call their analog life.
Don't we all?
Yeah, and I was going to say, I struggle with that too. So I think it's something that as a society we really need to take a deep look at. And I think it's important too that we sort of exist where our students exist. If they're on Twitter, try to be on Twitter. You don't have to be an expert user. Let them be the experts. But at least take an interest in it and try to understand and develop your own concerns about it and discuss that with them, and model that. Because if we're not doing it as adults and as educators, they're learning that from other people that are in the news for doing it inappropriately, probably. So it's
So
important
true.
that we do
Yes,
take that
yes,
role
that's
and be
good.
good models.
Well, I think some of the things that were touched on too is just the time involved for everybody in trying to learn new things and keep up on stuff. And as part of my job as training is coming up with quick snapshot 2-minute trainings that people just in time, just need things real quick and then move on and be able to use those things for the kids. But the struggles for the kids, I have the hardest time working with is and helping the kids out is note taking. It's back to that organization, and then a lot of times it's more than one cognitive process going on when they're
Correct.
trying to take notes or gather information from some type of presentation, from an adult or not. And it goes back to what resources you have in your building or your classroom to solve that problem. But if you if you're an Apple building, the app Notability is a great app for being able to bring things into digitized and be able to take notes and have there's also a recorder on that in Notability that when somebody's giving directions that could be recorded and the kid could be listening at the same time and be able to go back to that recording when he's trying to figure those kind of things out, those directions at a later time. The other thing that I've I have and I've tried to use a lot is using a smart pen. And a smart pen is a pen that has an MP3 player in the pen, and you can use that at the middle school. It seems like we have middle school people there. If there's an extra adult somehow to take notes and be able to record at the same time, it can be uploaded to a computer and be able to use uh, have the audio and the visual of that note piece, and it's a real phenomenal tool. You can get them. You can get it at Target or Best Buy, or you can go online and get it. But it's um, something that a high school kid or middle school staff can be able to use and supplement some of that note taking piece at a later date.
And Phil kind of just talked or touched on this a little bit as well, but I'm hearing things like these challenges being organization and self-regulation and balancing digital life with analog life. I like that. With all of these challenges, and like I said, Phil touched on his a little bit. Does anyone have any suggestions on specific technology tools that could be used to minimize some of those challenges? Maybe you have one in particular you're thinking of. But if anyone has any suggestions for that, we'd love to hear them.
I do. Go, Phil. Or Keith, you talk first.
All right. In terms of balancing analog and digital life, one of my all-time go-to tools is Common Sense Media. The site does a million things for parents and educators and students, way beyond just how to balance your digital life. There's all kinds of stuff on there, but it's my go-to resource and one that I share with every teacher who brings up any concern with students and their technology use.
So with regard to work output challenges, one of my favorite discoveries in the last 6 months or so is an app, and I believe it's only for the iPad, but it's called SnapType, so S-N-A-P, like Snapchat, but it's SnapType. And it was developed. I know, I talk about it endlessly. It was an app developed by an occupational therapy student, actually. She was working with a student in elementary school, and he couldn't get the work done with handwriting, but he could keyboard okay. And so she developed this app that allows you to take a picture of a worksheet or a page in a workbook, and it immediately becomes a typable worksheet. So you can now just type. It creates type boxes right on the work page. Now, Phil has talked to me about the fact that, well, that teacher should be creating something that lets everybody access it all the time, but that's not always the case. That's not the real, it's not always available. And if you're using a workbook, this gives a child who doesn't have that paper pencil skill an opportunity to complete the very same work that their peers are. Then that can be emailed in or any number of ways to turn that in. It's been really cool. And it's a free download for, I think, up to 3 documents at a time. And I want to say it's either $3.99 or $4.99 for an infinite number is what Amberlynn says. Infinite.
Where were you last year? I needed that for a student.
Oh, well, now you'll have it for this year.
Yeah. It's like I have to defend myself on this too. Is it Stacy is excited and this is I think this may be a perfect arena to discuss this, because my debate on this in my mind is yeah, that's great for that individual kid, right. But when we're looking at it in a UDL piece, I'm like, wait, where's the adults involved in this on making the material flexible enough that they can use it in different manners? Why aren't these worksheets digitized already somehow? Why does the individual kid and the individual case manager, whoever the OT, have to go and do that, that extra work for the kid? So it kind of doesn't jive with me too much, but I totally understand where Stacy's coming from. I also, we've talked about this throughout the year, and there are other apps that do similar things and cost in different ways, and there's DocScan HD, there's Faster Scan HD, there's Go Worksheet, Cam Scanner, and Genius Scan are all different examples of what Stacy's talking about. But that it's Stacy is right on point too with with the scan type. It's a great app.
Couple resources I use for differentiating nonfiction reading is Newsela and Newsomatic, and they have different levels and they use current events. So you could have several students reading the same article, but it differentiates the level. So that's nice. Readworks.org has a lot of different levels too, and now it's a digital version, so you can get it on the iPad. I think there's a new Beeline Reader is another new add-on for Chrome, and I think it's on iPad also. But it color gradient, it helps guide eyes, so it will change the color of the text, so it helps students guide their eyes across the page, and it leads to less skipping of lines of words. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
I have another favorite app that I like to use for kids who are, and this is less UDL to an extent, and more individual student, but it can be modified and adapted to use for a whole classroom. And it's a program that helps support kids who are working on self-regulation. And it's a whole program called the Zones of Regulation, and they have an app called the Zones of Regulation, and I think it's for both Android and the iPad. And it's sort of a video game format. It's kind of fun. You go through all these little zones, and in the process you learn about the various states that your body might be in, how under control you might be in those various states, and what kind of things maybe trigger those challenges for you. And then you develop a whole toolbox of strategies that work for you, tools that work for you to help calm you down, to help wake you up and alert you if you're feeling too sluggish. And as I say, that can be adapted for a whole classroom, but it's typically used on a more small group or individual student basis.
You know, I think one of the I think also we need to talk about some of the Google apps that I'm seeing more and more Chromebooks involved in buildings, and some of the apps are great apps to supporting kids and what they're doing, let alone the features now that we're seeing in the Google Docs and Google Forms. But what I've done is working with kids is I've come up with, you know, kind of a recipe of different apps to help the kids support them in the academic needs, and then working with the the IT people to, whenever they log into their Chromebooks, that these apps or these extensions pop up for the kid, and they're able to do some of the written language or the reading on these Google products with when they log into their student IDs, and it's been something that's been pretty cool last school year, being able to do. You know, my favorite one is the Grammarly, where for written language and spelling and the grammar for kids. There's Speak It is another one, even though Google Docs just came out with early November, October on with speech type. But there's multiple different extensions that can be beneficial for kids nowadays too.
Does anybody else have anything they want to add? All right, well, thank you for those of you who are tweeting out. Remember, it's hashtag MAET Getting back to our previous question for the OT, Stacy,
Yeah.
the person you had asked who they were, it's a librarian teacher. Just
Oh,
FYI.
interesting. Okay, cool.
But crazy to think we only have about 15 minutes left, so we're going to kind of skip ahead. Let's go on to, what do you think the greatest challenge teachers face when trying to use technology in the classroom? It could be in terms of assistive technology or just technology in general.
I think finding ample time to implement all these cool resources and finding the right tool for you and your students, I think is difficult. And getting more staff members involved. I know I'm one of few teachers who are implementing tech fully, and they're not using tech to the full advantage, so it's kind of not fair to the kids who have me as a teacher and are moving on, and they kind of lack, you know, they lack the support and technology. So more professional development for teachers who are nervous or afraid to get out of their comfort zone and actually use technology. It really benefits kids.
I always feel so terrible when we have a student that has a little bit of different kind of need or extra need. When I go to the teacher and I look into her or his eyes and we say, well, we're going to need to have a couple meetings to talk about how this is going to work and help you learn how to do it and then problem solve how the student is going to best be able to access this and when. And I just always feel so bad because there's already so many things on a teacher's plate. So I see that as one of the biggest challenges, just as Holly said, just finding the time to be able to do the upfront work that we need to do as a team. Because I can't ever look at this by myself. It always has to be as part of a team.
Yeah, I think teachers are faced with a lot of different things, like both you guys said. So it's hard to kind of just zone in on one thing. But I guess if I look back at, you know, student learning, like it all comes down to the students, right? So I think one of the hardest things is we're hitting a point where so much of the traditional education that we've all had is becoming less and less meaningful to students. It's not engaging them in the same ways that it may have engaged us in the past. There's just so many more resources, including the use of technology is so ubiquitous that it's just impossible to just avoid it. So we have to really strive to find new ways to make things meaningful, and that's a huge task to do. But I think it can be achieved through empowering our students to just follow their interests, giving them that student choice, and letting them drive sometimes. I know I did a activity when I was in the classroom where, for an assessment, I let kids choose any tool that they wanted to use to express any, like, the learning from that unit. So they could do something tech, but they didn't have to do something tech. Whatever spoke to them. And so giving students that opportunity, I didn't have to go through and explain every tool. I didn't have to go through and you know, explain all of the different pieces that they had to have. I really could judge based on what they knew, because I could truly see that. And just giving students a place to showcase what they've learned and to talk with people outside of the classroom and show what they've done, inviting people into your classroom, or, you know, using technology like Google Hangouts to get out into other places beyond the school. So I think, yeah, probably for me the biggest thing is just making learning meaningful to kids.
We're going to go ahead then and kind of finish up with our final question, which is a lot more open-ended, but where do you see educational technology going in the future?
Well, I think maybe just a general statement, as I see it, embedded into everything that we have, you know, that the kids are going to be doing in the classroom. And for me, on my side, it's excited that then the technology will be, I don't know, embedded, use a term again, that anything that we would use, there would be something like word predictor, like on everyone's cell phone right now. We all have word predictor.
Right.
You know, that was a special, you know, that was a accommodation for special ed kids or written language issues. Now everybody's using those kind of things. So, you know, my hope is that, you know, that we would be able to have options on everything, to be able to have closed caption, or be able to use things that to be able to read things differently. You know, we have the text to be able to read, but maybe, you know, maybe we're reading something that the original author has read this also, or is reading it to us. You know, and you know, there was an article this weekend in the New York Times on how that's such a, having that happen is just another level of understanding that you can have for that book or that essay or that poem, you know, kind of thing. And probably the next thing that I always kind of interested in is the different types of voices that are coming out. You know, I don't hear so much of kids saying, "Oh, that voice is so computerized. I can't understand." You know, they're becoming more and more human. You know, and then how can we use our own voice to can we mesh those two together?
Right.
Those futuristic kind of things that's fun for me to kind of look at. There's also one more thing that if you is just the cost of technology, and I'm seeing more and more people taking a look at cable and saying, this isn't worth it. When I first started in college, I didn't have that huge cable bill and that huge cell phone bill, that I have to account for now. How can we get that down, or how can that be more of our infrastructure that we have in our lives? Just some crazy thoughts.
Any other thoughts on where you see educational technology going in the future from anyone else?
I think it's a really great question.
Thanks.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of answers. There's one thing that I want folks to keep in mind, and at least this is what the current research is showing, as wonderful as technology is, I think there's research that's showing that kids still need their hands on paper pencil in those early learning years to develop the written language skills. And so years ago we thought we could just take those kindergartners and put them right on a keyboard if we knew, for example, they had cerebral palsy. Oh, they're not going to be writers down the road, so let's get them learning technology right now. And what we know now is that they miss a whole portion of that early literacy part. So I don't want us to see every kid keyboarding everything from the time they're able to identify the alphabet. I want to still see hands on pencils and using paper for a while still.
I don't want to miss my opportunity to respond to this too. I'm excited for where the future of technology is headed because, I think for the past, I don't even know how many years, we've really had a big focus on what are the cool tools that are out there, or how do I do this on a computer? And I think we're starting to hit a point where, okay, we're starting to get the hang of this, we're starting to be able to connect these tools more easily, and we can start having bigger discussions about how can our students use this technology to impact the world? How can we get the knowledge that they're learning in school, how can we get their learning experiences out there and changing the world before they even leave high school or middle school or elementary school? So I'm excited to see where things like personalized learning and maker spaces and authentic learning are really going to head. I think those are some things that are shaping the direction. They're not necessarily tied to technology, but I think technology can take them to places that will be really, really cool to see. So I'm really excited to see where that goes.
Yeah. I'm excited about the future as well. I also want to mention that I don't think the teacher will be replaced by technology. I don't think that's the way technology is going. We always need that community in our classroom, and we bring that community in as teachers. And I went to a conference recently, and one of the speakers said, technology changes, but kids don't. So I thought that was pretty powerful, that kids are kids. Even if technology is changing, they're still. So that's my end thought on that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Does anyone else have any final thoughts they want to add?
No, just that I want to go to Howie's classroom and see how it's done.
Me too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we really want to thank you guys all. A big thanks to our speakers, Stacy, Holly, Phil, and Keith, for joining us tonight and sharing your insights about assistive technologies. We've really appreciated it, and I think we had a great conversation. We want to thank you send a note of thanks to all our viewers for tuning in and contributing your thoughts and questions via Twitter. And remember, you can check out that Twitter hashtag, which is MAET Bridge, for a lot of the resources that were shared with us tonight and things like that, so with links to some of those resources that were mentioned. And don't forget that this webinar will be archived on the Bridge website, which is bridge.educ.edu assistive.msu.edu. So you can rewatch it or share it with someone who is not able to join us tonight if you think they would be interested. So again, thank you so much to all of our speakers, and that concludes our webinar on meeting the needs of students using assistive technology.